Welcome to Building Balance with Muhammad Ali, the podcast that helps ambitious men take control of their lives through self improvement, career mastery, relationships, and financial success. Each month, we bring you powerful insights, expert interviews, and real world strategies to help you elevate every aspect of your life without burnout. Today, we have a special guest, Elliot Katz, an author, speaker, and expert on masculinity, leadership, and relationships. Elliot's book, Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants, has impacted countless men looking to step up and take responsibility in their relationships. His work challenges modern misconceptions of masculinity and helps men develop the confidence and leadership skills necessary to build strong, fulfilling partnerships. But that's not all. After women read Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants, many asked Elliot how they could get the men in their lives to take charge more at home. In response, he wrote another book, How to Get Your Man to Wear the Pants So You Don't Have to, which helps women inspire men to make more decisions, take the lead, and stop leaving it all to them. We'll dive into all of this and more in today's episode. We're going to talk about why so many men struggle with confidence in relationships, what women actually mean when they say they want a strong man, and how leadership in relationships isn't about control, it's about responsibility. So let's get started. Welcome to the show, Elliot.
Good to be here, Mohammed. Thank you for having me.
Really honored to have you. So let's get started from the beginning. Let's start with why you felt compelled to write about masculinity and leadership in relationships. What was the key message you wanted to share with men?
Well, like a lot of books of this type, it sort of started my own experience. I was married for 10 years. I got divorced. And like a lot of people, I blamed the other person. And then you come to the point of asking yourself, what do I have to learn from all this? What should I have done differently? So I went on a journey to learn what does it mean to be a man in a relationship because I realized like there were a lot I needed to learn. And I started talking to other men and like we're all confused. And then I started reading books on relationships and they didn't really answer my questions. And then when I turned to the timeless wisdom that over the centuries men have written for other men, I was really blown away because it coincided with what I heard women complain is lacking in men today. They don't show leadership, they don't make decisions, and they don't take responsibility. There seems to be a giant disconnect between all the things men have been told and what women really want. And the more I've gone into this, I've realized, first I thought just me and my friends, but I realized it's like a whole worldwide thing that a man really needs to learn how to be a man. And usually he has his father as a role model, but for a lot of reasons today, a lot of fathers aren't really role models. And a lot of the messages we hear, it's just they're not healthy. I mean, yeah, be sensitive. Yeah, of course, be sensitive, but be masculine. You know, and don't be controlling. Okay, don't be controlling, of course, but that doesn't mean you leave everything to your wife and you're always waiting for her to tell you what to do. And among my research, there was a study done by the American Sociological Association in 2015 that's in the United States that 70% of divorces were initiated by the woman, and among college age educated women, it's 90%. So you read that and you think, well, it's like, do men really not care about making their wives happy? Every man I know wants his wife to be happy. Every man I know who's divorced said, I was trying to make her happy. It's just I couldn't make her happy no matter what I did. And it really comes down to realizing that all the things men have been told, a lot of the things men have been told, are just not what women want. And I've talked to men who are divorced, and they all say, nobody told me this. If I would have known this when I was married, I probably wouldn't be divorced. So it really comes down to what I was talking about, leadership, you know, making decisions, taking responsibility. It's not being a controlling tyrant. It's like, so many men think, oh, they'll just leave it to their wives. Whatever you want. If there's a decision to be made, they say, whatever you want, you decide. And and the thing is, a woman wants to feel safe and protected. And, today we hear so many things, women are strong and successful in business and careers, and that's all true. But as women told me, well, when they're in a relationship with a man, they want the man to take charge. They want to feel like a woman. They want to feel safe and protected. And like so many men say, oh, no one ever said that to me. I thought I'm being this modern, progressive man, letting her make all the decisions, just doing whatever she tells me. I'm a great guy. Why is she so angry at me? Why is she so frustrated with me? And that's why, because she wants to feel safe and protected, and she wants you to show your share of leadership.
And many men confuse this when they see a strong woman thriving in her career and doing all that she's supposed to perfectly. But then he thinks he doesn't have to take charge because he see someone really strong in these specific cases. And so again, it's about balancing what you said. Huh?
It's so fascinating because really women who are, successful in professions and in business, they still want a man, when they're with their husband, they want a man to take charge. They don't want a man who's always saying, "Oh, just tell me what to do."
Yeah, yeah,
You know what?
yeah,
And women have said to me, when a woman always has to tell a man what to do, it makes her feel
yeah,
like, he's a child and she is his mother, and she does not want to be his mother.
yeah,
It's so fascinating. There was even a study done a few years ago that showed a large number of women feel like married single parents, that they're married and they have a husband, but she has to run everything. She has to make all the
yeah,
decisions, and she feels like a single parent. And then
yeah,
the man thinks, well, I'm being a great guy. I'm letting her make all the decisions. I'm a non-controlling good guy. Why is she
yeah.
so frustrated with me?
Yeah, and it's that miscommunication in a way, right? So what she's expecting, and he's not delivering what he's supposed to do, right? And so why do you think so many men struggle with confidence and respect in relationships today?
Well, they just weren't taught. They didn't have a role model. They didn't have someone to teach
Mm,
them.
mm,
So many men have read my book or I've talked to them and they say, no one told me this. And yet, the interesting thing is like men and women speak different languages. So a
uh,
woman might say, oh, my husband's not doing enough at home. You're not doing enough. And he thinks, well, what do you mean I'm not doing enough at home? As soon as I come home, I ask you what to do. I'm putting giving the kids baths, I'm changing their diapers, I'm washing the dishes, I'm doing everything. I'm going nonstop until I drop from exhaustion. How could you say I'm not doing enough? And the reason is that he's not showing leadership. She doesn't want to have to make every decision, to plan everything. She wants him to know what's going on in their home. He'll come home, be aware of the problems, and say, "Oh, I see there's a situation here. Here, this is what I'll do to take care of it." Or this is what we need to do to take care of it. Or, I've done some research. I think this is a solution. Don't leave it all to her. She really feels frustrated. And it's so amazing. Like so many men don't realize this. They weren't told it. And it's very sad because, there's so many divorces that are really unnecessary. Good people. They think, what? Why are they getting divorced? They're good people. And it's like, and mostly in by the woman because she feels he's not doing his share. And like he thinks, well, what do you mean? I wash the dishes. He's not doing his share of leadership. She doesn't want a man to leave it all to her. Even I've talked to women. It's so interesting. Like even something like planning a vacation. So a man would think, here, well, you choose where we go. I'll pay for it. You should be happy.
yeah, yeah. I think it goes back to maybe early times where it was a norm, where men would just win bread and then women would do the house chores, and that was how it was supposed to be. And then later on in these modern times, men are trying to compensate that because of the which brings me to the next question actually. So what are the some of the biggest misconceptions about masculinity that hold men back?
Well, we heard so much negative talk about masculinity. We hear toxic masculinity,
Yeah,
masculinity is controlling. Yeah, those things are bad things. Nobody be, abusive or controlling or toxic. And so what's happened is men have gone to the other extreme, but really, when you look at it, masculine is actually a very positive thing. Even the word manliness is a very positive word. It's like the noble qualities of a man of mature character who has integrity, who has courage to step forward and deal with situations. Uh, you know, eh, just noble, honorable, all these very positive things. And these are things that men should be working on. But we think, oh, men think, oh, I'll just, do whatever she says. And why isn't she happy? Manliness is a very positive thing. There are men who are toxic and abusive and controlling. That's horrible. But that's not what it means to be a man. A man, his job is to make the woman feel safe and protected. to, make his children feel safe and protected. And I tell men, like, so many men think, well, I'll bring in the money, I'll let the wife run everything. And then they realize, well, my kids ignore me, they only come to me for ask for money. Like you gotta be a leader, a mentor, a guide in your family. And really, when you think about the old, the idea of the patriarch, and I mean patriarch in a positive way. He was the leader of his family. People came to him for advice. They respected him because he was concerned. He always was trying his best. He wasn't just bringing in money. I write in the book. You think you just bringing in money and paying for a house and paying the bills is enough to make you a father of a family? You're gonna have a lot of regrets. It's not. It's not. You're not going to gain the respect and love that you want.
Society move away from strong male leadership in relationships, and what do you think are the consequences of that shift?
Well, historically, when you look at it, and I've read histories of the family, yeah, centuries ago, families lived on farms. The father was home all the time. They raised, he was home. He was very involved raising his family, being a leader of his family, dealing with situations at home. There's people right that said when we became industrial society, the father was removed from the home. It's like he'd get up early in the morning, go to work, he'd work hard all day, he'd come home exhausted. He was exhausted. He said he didn't want to deal with things. And I tell men, I said, you know what? You may be exhausted, but you got to save some energy to show your share of leadership at home. Because for the same reason you work hard at your job because you want to provide a nice life for your family, you got to show your share of leadership and taking responsibility for the same reason because you want a nice life for your family. You don't want your wife to get divorced because you get divorced, your wife will get the money anyway. But your kids, you don't want to do it. It's horrible for kids. But so save some of that energy to be a leader and a guide and a mentor in your family. Once you start doing that, it's really, I look at my own situation. I'm in a very positive relationship now for a number of years, and like you really see there's a problem. Step forward, deal with it. Like here, I think this is the way to deal with it. Not just like, oh, you deal with it, you decide. Women don't like that. They want to feel safe and protected. But it's like we were talking about earlier. She may be very successful in the outside world, but when she's with her husband, with a man, she wants to feel safe and protected. And if she doesn't feel that way with you, she feels, what does she need you for? It's really, and so many men don't realize this. I didn't realize this, and like so many men, I just feel like some of the comments I get, like from women, from men, they read the book, they say this book is what our marriage needed. Due to your book, I have hope for our marriage again. And my husband is reading it. I'm working with him. That was the thing, so many men, so many women read my book and would give it to their husbands and say, "This is what I've been trying to tell you. Read this book."
Yeah. So, building on right from there, from now that we've established some of the challenges men face, let's talk about what women actually want. So, one of the biggest debates today is about what women actually mean when they say they want a strong man. So, how do you define that?
Right. So they want a strong man. Like I said, it makes them feel safe and protected.
Mhm.
Who doesn't who shows leadership. I tell women and men, it all begins on the first date. A man will call up a woman, would like to go out Saturday night? And she says, yes, what did you have in mind? And he says, I don't know, what do you want to do? I heard this from so many women. I talk at singles events, and I say, how many women have had a man say this to them? And it's very common. And the man thinks, I'm showing her I'm non-controlling. But to
Yeah.
the woman, she thinks, well, this guy can't even choose a place to go for a cup of coffee. How is he going to handle the challenges of married life and family? Am I going to have to make every decision in this relationship? That's what she feels. So it's a big turnoff. Like I know one woman I was coaching, she took this program on she was divorced and how to, find a new man, all these things. And they told her, like, if, to go on this matchmaking site and if a man asks her out and then doesn't have a plan, don't go out with him. I said to her, well, maybe you could go out, you could choose the first one. But she said, and she wouldn't go out with men. I said, no. She said to them, I'm willing to go anywhere you want. I'll meet you anywhere you want. but you choose the place. And men just want to sort of, and I understand why men think that. The men think, well, if I choose the place and she doesn't like it, then she'll start criticizing me or complaining. Right. So women have to realize just let them choose, but and just say it was so nice. Don't complain. Because that's a big turnoff for men. So anyway, so that's the beginning. And in your dating, be a man with a plan. You ask a woman out, think about what you know about her and what you know about yourself, what things that you both might enjoy doing. And then it's from there. You like when you're in a relationship, like you see a problem, don't ask her what should we do and think you're being non-controlling. Think, well, I think this is the solution. I think this is how we can solve this problem. And always do it. So make decisions. And then if she asks you, what should we do? Or simple things like some guys will ask me, well, she wants me to make all these decisions that don't really matter to me. They're not important. Why does she keep asking me?
Uh,
I said, because she wants you to be the man and make
mhm,
decisions. So if it
mhm.
if it's, it doesn't matter to you, well, then it's easy. Just make a decision. It,
Yeah.
it's and if she disagrees with you, she'll tell you. I went out with a woman a few years ago, and she said to me, "You date well. What are you doing?" I said, "Are you making fun of me?" I said, she said, "No." He says, "You're a good dater. What are you doing?" I said, "Whenever I ask you out, I have a plan to suggest. If
Yeah.
you have a better idea, I'm open to it. We could do it what you suggest, but I never come empty hands. Say, oh, I don't know. What do you want to do? Banish those words to banish. I don't know. What do you want to do? And don't say, you decide. Whatever you want, you decide. If she asks you to make a decision, make it. If she has a better idea, and so many things I tell men about showing leadership. Be aware of what's going on in your home. You see a problem, step forward. And at first, don't undermine if she's dealing with it, but if it's not being dealt with, think, okay, come up with a solution, and then decide. Well, is this something I should talk to my wife about, or should I just handle it myself? And then if you think you should discuss it with your wife, tell her, and this is the problem. I think this is a solution. What do you think? And then she'll tell you, but don't just say, oh, what should I do? Tell me what to do. And then men think, well, I'm being such a great guy. I just do whatever she tells me to do. Why is she not happy?
Yeah.
Because,
And
go ahead.
I think these modern times contribute to this a lot, especially social media. Many people, even if we talk about women, many women do not realize what they actually want. Like we are talking under the assumption where a woman knows what that she wants the man to take the lead. People who are so like on a daily basis affected by society and comparing their lives with others and seeing all of that, so they're not under a stable school of thought, if that makes sense, right?
Unstable what, sorry?
Stable mindset, you could say.
Okay, okay.
So they don't have a definition of what's the right way, right?
Right, right.
So how can, in such a society where everything is shattered, chaotic, how can men balance being kind and compassionate while also being assertive and respected?
Well, I don't think those are contradictory, and I think, what you asked is an important question because I think what I'm trying to do with the book is really teach men uh, what they need to do to have a loving, respectful relationship with a woman. So, you're not being a tyrant, but like you can take the lead. You could still listen to her input, and if she has a better idea, well, then you should do it, of course. But the problem is, like, when I tell people, is like, it's like what you're talking about social media and all the media, all these messages we hear are so confusing. We're not really sure what to do. So but I think when a man knows that this is what he should be doing, and then when you sort of have that clarity in your mind, like this is what I should be doing. So it's like I talking about asking a woman on a date. So if you know that I should ask a woman when I ask a woman out, I should have a plan. I'd like to take you out for dinner. I'll pick you up at this time. We'll go there. If you have a whole plan set out, she likes that. I mean, and I said, you don't have any confusion in your mind. Well, should I ask her should I ask her to plan the date? No, she really wants you to plan the date because she wants you to show that you can make her feel safe and protected by making the plan. When you get so then you just sort of get rid of all this excess noise and all these messages that are like very just lead to your confusion. And it's like I said, so many men. Like I was coaching one fellow. He said his wife is divorcing him because she doesn't like that he always talks about his feelings. So, men here today, oh, talk about your feelings, talk about your feelings. I said, well, maybe once a month, talk about your feelings. But if you come home every day as if like, oh, the world was so terrible to me today, it doesn't make you feel safe and protected. You have things, talk to your male friends and maybe occasionally talk to your wife, but if you're doing it every day, she doesn't really like it. But he's heard that women like it. And he figures, well, if he gets another woman, she will appreciate it. Well, not really. It's like, once in a while, or even somebody once told me, said to me, when a man cries, it's a sign of strength. I said, well, once in a while, like if somebody you love dies, and you could cry, okay, you love the person, but if you're going to cry all the time, she's not going to feel safe and protected. She really wants a strong man who will make her feel safe and protected. So, it's so what you say about like social media and all these other ideas, you just have to clean them out of your mind. It's like dating. This woman, she asked me what I was doing. I said, all these new ideas about dating, I just pushed them out of my head. And I went back to the ways that used to work. I ask a woman, I ask you, I have a plan to suggest, and she likes that. So just get rid of like that's the goal of the book is to sort of give clarity to people. This is what you need to do and it works. I really believe, and it works. I tell you, in my life, it's wonderful, and it makes the woman feel safe and protected. It's really so important.
So it all boils down to making a woman feel safe and protected, right?
Right, right.
Obviously there are other factors involved as well, because as we discussed that we are impacted by a lot of misinformation, confusing information. So and then there are debates where you must have seen like women, like there are women who want to make things right, and then there are women who don't know what they want, and then they just behave very toxically, right? And a man in this chaotic situation is confused not because of the outside chaos or misinformation, but because the woman he's dealing with is confused. So, in that situation, so first, what's the difference between taking charge and being controlling? And where do most men get it wrong?
Well, that's a great question. I think, if a woman you're saying if she's toxic, I think it's also important. Part of being a man who is emotionally strong is you have to set boundaries. I meet with guys who are treated very badly by women and they think, oh, I'll be understanding, she'll appreciate me. You have to set your boundaries like this is not acceptable. You talk to me this way, I won't be spoken to this way, or things like this. Here I am trying my best to make you happy. I like you. I'm courting you. I want you to appreciate all I'm doing, and all you do is complain about what I'm doing. That doesn't really, you have to set your boundaries, and then she'll respect you more. Because part of being wanting to be safe, a woman to feel safe and protected is, she may test you. She may treat you badly to see if you'll stand up to her because she wants you to stand up to her because then she knows you'll stand up for her and then she'll feel safe and protected. There are a lot of things, well, both men and women do to test the other person, but as men, we kind of we don't we kind of like they test us and we kind of fail the test. Like one test, I met this woman. She told me, very attractive woman. She said she went out with this man. They went out for dinner. The check came. She offered to put her credit card on it, and he accepted. And she says, now he won't. He can't understand why I won't go out with him again. And I said, this guy didn't realize she was testing you to see if you would insist on paying the bill. And that's a common test, and things like, I went out with a woman. She got in my car. We didn't really have a plan. I went to pick her up. First thing she says is, I don't have any idea of where we can go. So that was strange. I said, I have a plan where we can go. But, and I took her and we had a nice time. But the thing was, she was testing me. Like, don't ask me to plan the date. I want you to plan it. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I had a plan. But I thought that was kind of funny. She said right off, like, before I said anything. So, So, but basically, if a woman is like, engaging in bad behavior, treating him bad, you got to decide if, by setting boundaries, if she respects those boundaries, and, she may, but if she doesn't, maybe she's not for you, like you have to decide that you're entitled to be treated respectfully, you treat her respectfully. You see it all the time, women treating men very badly, and they put up with it, they laugh it off, and then they think, well, then they can't understand why she just keeps treating him worse and worse. You've got to decide. You have to have your boundaries. Maybe she's testing you to see if you have boundaries, but if she just keeps on, you got to decide maybe she's not for you. Some women are very controlling. They want to isolate. If they're going with a guy, they isolate him from his friends and his family. You got to decide. You got to put up with that. I mean, like, friends and family is what brings richness to life. So, you could say, well, no, my friends are important to me. My family is important to me. I'm going to do this with them. But if she just can't accept that, maybe, she's not for you. You gotta use your judgment and decide.
And in a way, if someone can make you do this, if that emotional side of your personality can make you do this, then as a man, you're actually not worth it, right? To lead a woman or a family, right?
Right, 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 right. No, I've seen a lot of those situations where the men are just treated so badly and they don't seem to understand. They think they're being great guys and they don't realize, it's not good what they're doing. It's not good.
So you mentioned when women read your first book, and then in response you wrote the second book, right? So how to get your man to wear the pants, so you don't have to. So can you tell us about the key lessons from that book?
Well, that's a good question. Thank you. So the key lesson is, I really started by explaining to women that, you may be frustrated with him because he's leaving all the decisions and all the leadership to you, but you have to understand he really doesn't know what he's doing bothers you. He really thinks he's making you happy, and he can't understand why you're happy. And so yeah, the message of the book is you as a woman can inspire your man to take charge more at home and to show, leadership and make decisions. And I give a whole bunch of examples of different situations. Like if you ask your husband, you call him at work, what would you like for supper, chicken or fish? And he says, whatever you want, you're a great cook. He says, what I want is to know what you want. When a man makes decisions, I find it very attractive. I find a man who makes a decision is manly. Like you praise him for doing things because you see, the women really think, and this is an important thing that they really think the man should know this, and he can't. Like it's so obvious to her that this is what she wants, and he doesn't seem to know. Like, well, why doesn't he know what this is so obvious to me? This is what I want as a woman. Why doesn't he know this? Well, because he wasn't taught it. He didn't learn it from home. He didn't learn it whatever he didn't know. But you could inspire him. How was he going to learn it? You could teach it. You could inspire it. And the book just covers all these different situations, but taking responsibility, and making decisions, and then praising him and say, well, that was a good, you made a good decision. I appreciate it. And just everybody wants to feel valued and appreciated. So if you show that what he does, you appreciate it, he'll be more, he'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
As opposed to so many men have said to me, well, I tried taking the lead. All she did was criticize me or undermine me. So I gave in and gave up. I said, or they'll say, oh, I need my wife to let me to lead. She wants you to just take the lead. And if she's criticizing you, just think, well, is there something valid here? Is she saying maybe she's helping me? She's doing it because she wants to help me do better. Because I tell men, well, when you criticize your wife, aren't you telling her these things because you want her to do better? So she's doing the same thing. But the main thing for women to realize is he's doing this because he really doesn't know. I'll tell you a funny story. I was once interviewed on a talk show in Boston, and the host said, "Oh, he asked me all these questions, and he says, oh, like he was making these snide comments, and he says, I only ask women to call in And they'll say if they agree, I disagree with you. Say, well, we'll see if they women agree with you or they agree with me, and we'll keep score. So a bunch of women called in. They all complained about how their husbands never took leadership, never made decisions. And I realized after this was going, he thought this was like this was a setup. He thought all these women would call in and yell at me and call me chauvinist or something. All the women said, no, I want a man who can take charge, who doesn't leave everything to me. Even one woman called and she said her husband had passed away and how much she missed him, taking the lead and making decisions. So then at the end, he said, well, he was surprised. So he didn't know. So, the men just don't know, and they have to learn. And like so many men will say to me, even young guys will say, I really don't know how to have a relationship with a woman. So I said, read the book and don't listen to everything you've heard.
And I think a lot of it has to do with being conscious, and before being conscious, I would say part of being conscious would be a self-reflection. So figuring out before, like, one of the things that I understand is people go into relationships for the wrong reasons, and then, like, a woman would say, the typical thing I've seen is, um, he's so funny,
Yeah,
he makes me happy, he makes me laugh, and that's why we're together. But then, along after some time, you realize that's not all that you
yeah,
want in a
yeah,
relationship,
yeah.
right? And maybe part of the problem is that you get into relationships without understanding what it will take, and one of the problem with this age that I hate is it's been normalized. It's not working out. It's been normalized to an extent that people, when you enter, especially in young ages, when somebody enters somebody's life, you take a part of them and then you leave, and it was just an experiment for you. But then the other person, uh, that innocence is in them, their definition of the world is distorted, right? What they were hoping that the right man would come, or vice versa. In many cases, men are being mistreated, so that's a common thing. But then the all of this being normal, but we hear it a lot that it's okay, no, don't stay in a toxic relationship. But not every argument or hard phase in a relationship is toxicity,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So now that we understand what women want, let's talk about how men can step into that leadership role in a way that strengthens their relationships.
Right, right. I just want to comment on what you just said. I've heard women will say, um, I like him because he makes me laugh. That's a common thing. And I tell men, tell a lot of jokes, if you want, but men are often, very attracted, to a woman's beauty and her physical attraction.
Mhm.
And men, that's very nice, but you have to make sure she's a good person. Like, yeah, yes, you want to, men like women who are attractive, but make sure she's a good person who is going to be your partner in life. Because, I just said one thing, I did a little survey of women and you ask, well, what's the most important thing a man wants from a wife? Not just any woman, the woman he marries. And they'll say sex, appreciation, respect. I said, those are all important, but the most important thing, he really wants a partner. So, a partner in life is going to be with him through thick and thin. So make sure, yes, you want a woman who's attractive, but make sure she's your partner. She will be there through thick and thin. And when I look at, interesting, when I look at marriages that I know that were very successful, they didn't have, it wasn't like they had no challenge. They had a lot of challenges, but they were committed to each other. And when they worked together to overcome those challenges, it brought them closer together. They loved each other even more. So that's really, really important. So you say, how do you be the strong man? Like first, choose someone who's that kind of character. Like, that's going to be there for you, and you're in a difficult situation. They're there for you. Wow, that's the most beautiful thing. And she's a beautiful woman. That's great, but she wants to help you in a difficult situation and not just bail out because, that's wonderful. You're a lucky guy if you find that. And other things, so you think with your head.
Mm.
But also, I mean, I think the thing is, like I said, just start off, or even if you're in the relation, start being more of a man who is a leader, a mentor, a guide, who doesn't just, and I know my own transformation, I guess I can call it. I really had to catch myself. Like so many times, I wanted to say, "Oh yeah, whatever you want, you decide." No, no, I can't. I have to say what I think, and if she disagrees with me, if she has a better idea, I'm open to it. But don't just be passive and just tell me what to do, I'll do it. Women, yeah, they don't want that, and if, don't let yourself be treated badly because she's going to hate you for it. That you hate it, but there's a joke. Someone said, I hate it. Says, my wife tells me if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. You heard that? And like the guy who said it, it's like, it's a joke, but there's truth in jokes. So
Yeah.
really, as I say in the book, a man who's ruled by his wife, it's not a life, but you know what? It's also not a life for his wife because she doesn't want that. She wants a man who has some backbone, who can stand up and give his opinion, and she could depend on, this woman I was coaching, she told me she divorced her husband because whenever in their difficult situations, he would leave it to her to solve, step forward. Yeah, and I'm sure he thought, oh, I'm a great guy. I'll let her decide. No, she
Mm.
wanted him to step forward to make her feel safe and protected. So
Mm.
even if, like sometimes men, like I know I was like this, you said, well, I'm not really sure. I might be making a mistake. Say what you think. Say what, and when you say what you think, I know my own experience, like I just decided I'm gonna have to do this because the other way wasn't working. And sometimes you'll say something, and other people will say, "Yeah, I'm glad someone finally said it." It's amazing, you know what? Once you step forward, and like people admire you for they admire you for being a strong man, and that's really um, the woman I'm with now. She told me how I was helping a person with a court case, and the lawyer from the other side wanted to interrupt me, and I told her, "You cannot interrupt me, and you won't interrupt me." And she was so impressed. And I said, "No, I'll finish speaking, then you can speak." So I stood up and I showed I was a man. And like it's like those small situations. It's not like going on a rampage and beating people up. No, it just speak up and like show, hey. And that made her feel like, hey, I stood up in that situation. I will stand up for her. So it's just like just catch yourself every time you want to revert back to your old ways. Oh, yeah, whatever you want, I'll be a nice guy. Catch yourself and realize you're not being a nice guy. She's not gonna like you if you're just weak. I don't like to say the word weak, but it's like you got to stand up and be a man, and she'll respect you more for it because that's really what she wants.
And in s- another point that where it all boils down to, as I understand it, is the lack of communication, right? People don't build that in relationships, and maybe they want it fast, everything quickly, or I don't know why, but one of the issues that we see, one of the reasons when you read about people getting divorced, and then you ask them, among other reasons, there's always that I cannot talk to this person. They don't get me,
Right.
right? And it's both sides. So what do you think about that?
It's a good point, and it's sort of like what I was talking about earlier. Is like you, you know, you- like women will say, "Oh, you don't understand. You don't understand," and
Mm.
it's true. Men don't understand because the way they're interpreting what the woman is saying is not really what the woman means. It's really what I was saying to you earlier. Like when a woman says, "You're not doing enough," what do you mean I'm not doing enough? I'm doing so much. Well, that's not what she means. You're not taking charge of anything. You're leaving it all to me. That's really what she means. But to the man, he doesn't understand that. So he thinks, well, you're talking nonsense. I go nonstop. But there's a problem. You just ignore it. You wait for her to deal with it. That's you see, that's what she means when you're not doing enough. You got to step forward. You've got to be aware of what's going on in your home, and step forward and deal with it. and that's really that's what you really be her hero. You see all these problems and say, hey, our daughter dropped out of school. She spends all day sleeping. She goes out at night, comes home at 6 in the morning, and you say, and you think, well, it's your fault. You blame her, your wife. Well, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. You're the father. You say, hey, hey, maybe I could get you a job somewhere. Maybe you need to get a job and stop spending all day in bed. And you do that, you're a hero. You're a hero to your wife. You saw the problem, you dealt with it. And so that's the thing. Communication with people, they say people we don't communicate, but they do talk a lot. They just don't understand what the other person needs. And like men, it's like what been saying all along. Men just don't understand how important this is. So he thinks, like I said, I'm doing whatever you want. Like, what are you complaining about? I'm being a non-controlling good guy, and he doesn't understand. She really wants you to feel she wants to feel safe and protected. That's a very important thing.
And why do you believe leadership in relationships is not about domination, but about responsibility?
Right. Well, nobody wants to be dominated. Men don't want to be dominated. Women don't want to be dominated. It's really about taking responsibility. Sometimes people say, oh, leadership, you're telling people to be controlling. No, no, not be controlling. It's about taking responsibility. It's like there's a problem in your house, there's a problem with your kids. Take responsibility and deal with it. Don't just say, tell me what to do, I'll do it. That's not taking responsibility. I see this problem, I'm going to step forward and deal with it. And that's taking responsibility. And sometimes men, they're afraid that they don't want to do it. They think, well, if I make a mistake, I'll get blamed. She'll start criticizing me. It's and then when they do it, uh, and if it goes wrong, sometimes it's like if they just go along with the wife and they think, well, if it goes wrong, I'll just blame her. And in my book isn't religious at all, but I do tell the story of Adam and Eve when they had in the Garden of Eden because it's such a powerful story. It was like to me, it was a kick in the head. They had one commandment: don't eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Eve eats it. She pressures Adam to eat it, and then he's hiding in the bushes. And God says, "Did you eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge I command not to eat?" And what does he say? Does he man up and say, yeah, I did. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it. No, he blames his wife. He says, the woman you sent me gave it to me and I ate it. When I read that, it's like, that's what I did. I would blame her for things. I gave it the things that she wanted. I knew they would go wrong and then I blamed her. So it's like, and then God punishes him for just listening to his wife and not using his judgment. So you know what? Men got to learn that lesson. If you give in to something that's wrong and then you blame her, people will still hold you responsible. You're not escaping responsibility by blaming your wife. So take responsibility, do what you think is right. If it's wrong, then correct it. But don't give in to something you know is wrong and then blame your wife. Nobody will have any sympathy for you. When I was first separated, I got the other man. He like it was like we were in the same marriage. He started telling we like so many things were so similar. And then he tells me that his wife ran up $50,000 on the credit cards. I looked at him.
Oh,
So how could you let that go on? I would never let that go on. So I was asked myself, how did I let the things go on that I go on? Because I didn't take responsibility. So he, even though he let it go, people still held him responsible. So that's it. So that's the that's the important part. Show leadership because you're still responsible. If things go wrong, people will say, "Well, why did you let it go on?" People will still look. We think about these days of gender equality, but still, our natural human instinct is to say, "Man, let that go on. You let that go on in your family. Why did you let it go on?" They still hold you responsible.
and the part of is it safe to say part of the problem is delaying this these decisions, delaying taking control, or giving the other person way too much benefit of the doubt?
Well, yeah, that's part of it. So some men will think, well, if I just delay making a decision, the decision will make itself, or the
Mm,
problem will go away. Sometimes that happens, but it's yeah, it's avoidance, right? They just want to avoid because they don't want to, for all the reasons they make a decision, their wife will criticize them, all these things. But you can't do that. You have to be the man. You have to man up and make the decision, and with your wife's input, like. If she has idea, it's oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Okay, let's do that too. But if you're just always leaving it to your wife, she's going to think, what do I need this for? I feel like a single parent. That's
yeah.
it's you can't avoid it. It's you have to step forward. And it's hard. Relationships are hard. At first it's
Mm,
exciting to be with a woman.
mm,
She's attractive. But then we actually married. It's hard work.
mm,
And that's there's challenges. There's things to do, with their kids. It's a
mm,
lot of work. And I think it's important to, if you're going to get married, like there's marriage education programs. It's a good idea. I know a woman who runs one. She says, they'll give it a questionnaire to the husband and wife, or the bride and groom before they get married.
okay.
And they'll ask them what do you want in this marriage? Do you want kids? Do you want that? Sometimes the answers will be so different of what they
Uh,
want. I said,
uh,
didn't you discuss these things?
uh,
You don't
uh,
want kids. This person, she wants kids. Well, maybe you should hold off getting married and talk about these
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
So it's really important. Like, don't just think because you like them so much and they're attractive, it's going to work. You have to make sure
Mm,
you're on the same page, and you're the kind of man she wants. That you're going to
yeah.
be a
Mm.
man who takes responsibility, not leave everything to her, because she's just going to get frustrated.
And mm, we've talked about what a man is supposed to do, right? But in cases if a man feels like he's already lost respect in his relationship, what's one step he can take today to start turning things around?
You know what? And the main thing is start showing leadership. Like that's what I tell men. Don't if they look, be aware what's going on in your relationship in your home. Don't if she's dealing with something, don't undermine her. That's being
Mm,
stupid. But just look for a problem that needs to be dealt with that is not being dealt with, and say, hey, you know what? I think this is the way to deal with this problem. I'm going to deal with this problem this way. And you're showing initiative. I mean, just think at a job. If you go up to your boss and say, I see this problem here. I did some research. I think this is a solution. Well, that's the kind of person we want. They're showing initiative. So it's the same thing at home. Show initiative. I see the problem. I did some research. I think this is a solution. I'm going to do this. You could ask her, what do you think? If you think she has some ideas, and then say, wow, this is what I want. I want a man that takes initiative and doesn't leave it all to me. So and you could start small, start with small things and just keep doing it and just keep doing it. And at first you might be surprised and shocked, but just step forward and do it. And it's just, wow, she'll be so happy. She'll say, hey, this is the kind of man I want.
mm. And that connects back to all the things that you discussed in the second book as well, right?
Right. And that what's in the back second book is how a woman can get the man to do that, how to
Yeah,
inspire him
yeah.
to do
and
those
and and
things.
and one of the hearing you, that this hit me, that if a woman is really trying to do this, she's already a keeper, like she's trying to make things work, right? And you have to work with her together. Obviously, if you in some cases where somebody is trying to make it work, but then they're only talking about the things they're expecting from you, but then not working on the ones that he or she is supposed to do, right? So, in those situations, don't you think it becomes a bit hard to uh, to give your input? Like if the other person knows that they're doing something wrong as well, but they're not talking about that, they're just trying to fix you. And what do you make of it, of such situations?
Well, yeah, no, I understand what you mean, but I think it really depends on the situation. But if you start doing these things, and she feels like, wow, I'm falling in love again. This is the man I wanted. I love this man. she'll start being more respectful to you and start really try, you start treating like a king. Really, when you do that, she'll look up to you, she'll respect you, she'll treat you a lot better. It really makes a difference when you start doing these things. In my own experience and the experience of the people I've coached and the feedback I've gotten on the book, it really makes a difference when you start being that strong man that makes you feel safe and protected. She loves you. She wants to please you. It's really it's a really magical thing. And you know what? That's why I'm really on this mission to educate the men of the world so that we can eliminate divorce, or reduce the divorce and reduce the number of children from broken homes. Because, like I say, so many divorces aren't necessary. We think, in the old days, there were a lot fewer divorces, and these were cases where a person's violent or they're an alcoholic or something or some sort of addict. Okay, those situations are very, bad situations. But so many situations that they just get fed up with their.
Elliot, this has been an incredible conversation. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you a few questions, final questions for the men listening. So, if a man wants to start taking responsibility for his personal growth and leadership today, what's the first mindset shift he needs to make?
Well, I think like it's really to realize that this is really what his wife wants, that she really wants him to start showing leadership and not to feel like, oh, he's being a controlling tyrant. Like that's what men have heard. Like, so the main thing is to realize that so many men I talk to say, like I said at the beginning, they've never heard this before. So to realize, try this. It can transform your relationship. It and just catch yourself when you step back into being passive and letting her decide everything. Just realize this is really what she wants, and try it and see the difference it makes. I've coached people who said, they tried it because like nothing else they didn't know what else to do, and they said, wow, my wife says to me, I'm making her feel safe and protected. She never said that before. Just try it. Realize this. Try it. This is what she wants. Try it, and don't just brush
And
it off.
we understand that you've went into more details in your book about these things. So where can listeners find your books and follow your work?
Okay, the best place to get them is on Amazon. Let me show you you want here.
Please, please.
This one, Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants,
Yeah.
and How to Get Your Man to Wear the Pants. They're both on Amazon as an ebook, a paperback, and an audio book. So you can listen to it while you're driving. And my email is, you could email me, or it's Elliott R. Katz at AOL.com, ELLIOTT, two T's, KATZ at AOL.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm really on a mission because I really don't want people to stay married, and I don't want children to be from broken homes. And if you can do this, it'll make a difference.
Well, thank you so much. We'll put these details on the screen as well in the description as well, so that people can easily find your work. Thank you
Okay.
so much for joining us
My
today,
pleasure.
Elliot.
Thank you for having me on. You're doing
Uh,
great things, Mohammed.
thank you, and it was a pleasure having you, and I look forward to learning more from your work. And yeah, again, thank you so much. And to our listeners, if you found this conversation valuable, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who you think would benefit from this. Until next time, keep building balance, confidence, and success. See you next time.